Hi everyone, my name is Steven. Welcome to a Bar TV interview here. Today we invite our greatest guest, Dr. Jaffe, to our interview. Welcome, Dr. Jaffe.
Thank you. Pleasure.
So, let's start with a very simple question. So if there's a kid, he said, well, Dr. Jaffe, I know you are really famous, but what's your research? So how would you explain to this kid?
Well, I think about important ideas. And for many years, I thought about the relation between physics and mathematics. And I think of mathematics as beauty and physics as truth. And I think they're really bound together. But we never knew for many years, and still don't completely know, that the greatest physics discoveries of the 20th century make sense as mathematics. And this is a set of problems I've worked on for a long time. So these are quite fundamental questions, and it's at the basis of knowledge. And I think this is something that kids should appreciate.
But what about your research? The topic of your research and your achievement? How would you explain that?
Well, the two theories I was talking about were quantum theory and relativity in physics. And those are beautiful separate theories and explain so much about nature, but we didn't know that they're mathematically compatible. And the idea to put them together is to have an equation of physics, which is called a field equation, which has a solution compatible with quantum theory and relativity. And this is a problem I've worked on for a long time, and found that if we lived in flatland, like our space was a table instead of our three-dimensional world, you could solve this problem. And with a friend, Jim Glim, worked on it for a number of years, for 10 or 15 years. And then afterwards with students and coworkers, we showed that it does work in flatland. But we still don't know if it works in our three-dimensional world.
Well, I'm trying to understand that. So I know you have contributed to the high school students' education and university students' education. So what kind of qualities you are looking for in the students?
I've had wonderful students throughout my career. And what I look for in students is that they're interested, they want to work hard. That's very important. They want to do something important in life, and they want to discover something really new, and they're dedicated, they want to be dedicated to do that. And if they're very original, that's a quality that's important too. And so I look for all those three.
But there's some students, they think themselves are, well, I'm interested and I'm work hard. So how would you differentiate one from another?
Well, it's funny because when you're young, you often don't realize what the most important things in life are. And I talked to a very famous mathematician, Terry Tao. I don't know if you know him.
I know him.
UCLA.
A Chinese man?
Yes.
Yeah.
Originally from Australia. And he told me that as a young boy, he was very good at solving problems. And he would win competitions. But these were always problems other people had done before. And the real thing in mathematics or in science is solving problems that nobody else has ever solved. And you don't really know if they can be solved. And Terry said that it was only when he was at graduate school in Princeton that he understood what mathematics was really about.
So I know you have an experience in Princeton, so I think you maybe have the same ideas.
I had a wonderful training in Princeton, but it was funny because I started in Princeton as a chemist. And then I decided I wasn't very good at chemistry, so I wanted to try something else, and I went to Cambridge University and studied mathematics for 2 years. And while I was at Cambridge, I found that there was a person in Princeton doing just what I thought was the most interesting thing, and I wanted to go back there and study with Arthur Whiteman, so that's what I did.
Well, so if you have the students you are looking for, so how would you like to educate them?
I want them to learn to think on their own. And when I start a course, I always say two things. You should be able to solve the problems in this course as if you were on a desert island. You should be able to think your way through without looking it up in a book or on the internet. And the other thing is, if you want to be successful in life, you have to be a student your entire life.
I know your father, he is perhaps a good doctor because he is a member of the Royal Medicine Society of the British of the island. Anyway, I know he is a good doctor, but do you think he provided you some guidance when you are growing up in your life and in your academic career?
Yes, well, my father always taught me that it's very important to work hard. It's important to sit at your desk when you try to solve a problem and keep sitting and thinking as long as it takes. And I guess my father wanted me to be a doctor too, but I was always afraid of that because I did not want to be in my father's shadow. I thought that he was so well known in his field, I didn't want to be compared with him, so I wanted to do something different.
That's good. So do you think he gave you some inspiration?
He gave me a great deal of inspiration, but mostly he said, if you work in a field, you want to try to do something very original and do as good a job as you can. And that was something that stuck with me.
So you mentioned you have been to Princeton University and Cambridge, and now you are teaching in Harvard University for decades. So do you think there's any country or region or specific university that have a good education system that impresses you?
Well, there's so many different education systems in different countries. And I think that people can succeed in many different systems, but it's important that they want to succeed. And that's even more important in the education system. And when I was a student, I must say, I learned as much from my friends as I did from my professors. So I think it's important to be around other very interesting people.
So what if a student of you said, well, now I'm learning more from my friends rather than my professor? What do you think?
I'd say, oh, I'm very happy. I'm happy you're learning things.
Well, I know there are some critics from both Chinese mainland and some from the United States said the university education are getting worse and worse. Like they are not really educated people. So do you think it's true?
Well, it's very hard to generalize. I think that I've enjoyed my time here, and every year I've been here and taught, I've found they're very good students. And in some courses, the students get better and better. Maybe it's because the university is more selective or there are more students applying, but I always enjoy interacting with the undergraduate students, and I find each year different. And I couldn't say that the universities are going down, but I think that I've heard that in many countries, high school education isn't as comprehensive and as rigorous as it used to be. And I think that this in the long term is something that should be addressed.
And you have been dedicated to math and physics and science for decades. And I guess you must have been through some hard times. So what makes you always keep energy and keep interested in this area?
Well, I think every person who works in science goes through hard times because you come across problems you think you cannot solve. And sometimes it takes a very long time to work through your ideas or to realize you're going in a dead end and go off in a different direction. So, for instance, I talked before to say that it's now understood that relativity and quantum theory are compatible in 2- and 3-dimensional space-time. And we don't know it in 4 dimensions. And I really would have liked to solve that problem in four-dimensional space-time and find a Yang-Mills theory, which is the one that's probably the easiest. But I decided that somebody younger has to work on those things. That's perhaps, I'm sure that problem can be solved, but I thought that there are other directions I wanted to go in, so I looked and worked on different problems. I worked on some new branch of mathematics called non-commutative geometry, and now I'm interested in other problems that connect to information theory, but these are, you do what you can, and I think that I'm very happy with the course that my life has taken.
So I think you might have a dream to solve the most difficult math or physics problems when you are very young and keep that dream for decades, for a long time. Is that right?
I always wanted to do something in science that was important. And I think that I came to that feeling when I was very young. And when I was growing up, it was in the air that scientists were doing very interesting things. And I think that's why I became interested to be a scientist. I'm not sure that the same is true today. I think that there's more emphasis on business, making money, and doing other things in life. So, but for me, science is extremely important, and science and its connection to the arts, because I find them both have similar ideas behind them, is very fascinating for me.
But if you have a student, you think he's a good one, and you let him to study with you, but someday he said, "Sir, I want to make money." What will you say to him?
Well, I'd say, have fun.
So do you have any other hobbies, other than math and physics and perhaps chemistry? Do you have any other hobbies?
Well, I guess I'm interested in music, and I've been very lucky in my life to get to know a number of very good classical musicians. And this has been something that throughout my life I liked to play the piano, and I also learned to play the clarinet. But I then later in life got to know some really brilliant players and composers and people who do things that I could never do in music, and this has been a lifelong interest. And I also like nature. I like going on hikes and doing things in the outdoors.
So you play music or listen to music?
Well, now my friends play music so much better than me that I listen to music and enjoy it.
I know that Mr. Einstein, he played violin. And have you ever think of trying to learn from him and play the piano, play the violin to inspire yourself?
I always found my interaction with music, sometimes it was inspirational, because sometimes listening to music I had a good idea to solve a mathematical problem I worked on, but mostly it relaxes me, it puts me in a good mood, and then I like to do things afterwards.
So what kind of music you like? Classical music? Any special musicians?
Well, I like many different musicians. I'm fascinated by Schumann, and he has great harmony, or Debussy has great color, and everybody likes Bach because of his beautiful compositions. But I also think that contemporary music is interesting, and there are very good composers writing music today, which is very different from classical music. And I often have gone to contemporary concerts or operas, and I find them fascinating also.
I know there are someone said there's a deep connection between math and music, because there are some kind of beauty between the connection. So I don't know if that's true, but from your opinion.
It's fascinating that there's so many scientists and mathematicians who are interested in music or are involved in music, and so many of my musical friends are interested in science. And But I don't know exactly why this is true, but they seem to go together very well.
So do you have any source or channels or filters when you collecting information if you want to research a new problem?
Well, there are many different sources. I used to go and read many journals, go to the library. Now, so many things are available on the internet that it's much easier to do that. But I also like to talk to people, and I like to have random interactions with people. If you go out in the hallway and meet somebody at random and start to have a conversation, it gives you a new idea about something, and that's a very good way to know a direction to go in, and then you have to go and do some research and learn about it.
What if it's not a science problem? Maybe it's some problem about life.
Oh, those problems, they're much more difficult. So understanding people is probably the most difficult problem in the world. And I'm not sure I'm very good at that, but I like to try.
I know you were once the president of American Mathematical Society. So how do you think the value of this society?
Oh, the society does many things. It publishes many mathematics journals, so this is very important for the community because that's the way people spread their research. The American Mathematical Society is one of several mathematics societies in the United States. It's the one most directed toward research in fundamental mathematics. But the society also has outreach and talks to the public about how important mathematics is. That's a very interesting thing too. And the society has meetings where it brings people together. And I think that these random interactions I talked about in the hallway take place also at meetings. And when you can go to a meeting and meet interesting people, that's wonderful. And the society tries to do that. And there's societies now around the world that do this, try to do the same thing. And they are all very good for our environment.
So if there are many mathematicians gather together and talk about some math problems, so do you think someone will feel awkward if he looks like he knows nothing or he says something stupid, will be laughed at? Do you think that will happen?
I have to tell you a story about a teaching fellow I had, and he came from China. So he was delayed, and I was very worried because I thought he might have some problem the first time he taught a class. So I went to the class, and it went beautifully. But then at the end, he went to the students in the front row, and he said, I just came from China to the United States. I've heard so much about Harvard University, and there's something I don't understand. Why do the students not ask questions? And nobody said anything. And then he went up to somebody in the first row and he said right to his face, why don't you ask questions? And the person there said, it's because I'm afraid that if I ask a question, I'll show my friends I don't understand something. And after that, things worked very well because students asked many questions and they were not afraid. And that's the most important thing. You should not be afraid to let on that you don't understand things because you learn by asking questions and you learn from not understanding and working hard to understand.
Even if you are already a famous mathematician?
Yes, because as I said, you have to be a student your entire life.
Yes, that's true. So how do you think of your value as a president in the American Mathematical Society and a director of math department in Harvard University?
I think that the best thing I can do is encourage other people to do good work and encourage young people to think about being involved in mathematics.
So do you think you have ever met any big challenges that you... Actually, it's two questions. Do you have any big challenges that you overcome and you cannot overcome?
Well, let's first talk about science. And I think the biggest challenge I had in science was showing this compatibility between quantum theory and relativity. And the biggest challenge I did not overcome is to show that in the four-dimensional space-time, you can do it. And I always wanted to do that, but I decided it was too hard a problem to solve at my age. And that, I think, in science is my biggest challenge that I didn't overcome. But the other thing we talked about already is how to understand people, and I think I still don't understand that.
I think that's a mathematician, you're not a politician. That's the difference. So do you have any regrets or something you want to achieve but you will not have any chance to achieve?
Maybe I didn't keep up enough with very interesting people I knew at university many years ago, because some of them have done wonderful things in life, and it would be interesting to follow them more closely. That's one thing I regret. But aside from that, I don't have many regrets about life. I think I've had a very good life.
Someone may think the great scientists might dedicate too much to the science and ignore their family and friends. Do you think it's a common situation?
Yes, in fact, that to some sense might apply to me, but I'm very happy now. I'm a grandfather. I have a grandson who's almost 5 months old, and I have many photos of him, and I've seen him a number of times, and I really enjoy that part of being part of the family.
Do you still want to inspire him like what your father did to inspire you?
I'd like to do that very much, but I think he has to be a little bit older.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, doctor. Thank you very much for joining our interview. And at last, I want you to, do you have any words to our audience, especially those juniors or teenagers? Do you have any words for them?
I'm always so impressed by meeting interesting young people who want to do mathematics. In fact, last summer, a year ago, a high school student came to a meeting that we organized here last June, got a mathematics problem, and solved it. The problem was given by one of the best mathematicians in the United States. And he had worked on it, but this student, high school student in his last year, was able to solve it, and he's coming this fall as a freshman at Harvard University. I'm so happy about that. But I think that young people can open many doors and do many things, and I think that it's very important to do the best you can and to try to achieve your entire life.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, our audience. Thank you for watching our interview. See you next time, and see you next time, Dr. Jaffe.
Thank you.
Thank you.